Hi, welcome back to Feel Tank Tuesdays. I am joined by a couple of friends who I'm going to let introduce themselves.
Hi. Hi, Bonnie. Thanks for having me.
You're welcome.
I'm Namid Wolf, and I am a poet, artist, mama, um, medicine woman, and I'm grateful to be here. So,
Thanks for being here,
yeah.
Nick.
And yeah, my name is Nick Clemmer, and I'm a herbalist and um, herbalist and plant medicine explorer. So yeah,
And I
hi.
am philosopher Bonnie, and this is our little talk. Today we're going to be talking about microdosing psilocybin. So, does anybody want to start with,
Yay.
yeah,
I guess I'll start. So, Nick and we've talked about this back in the day, microdosing psilocybin. And I guess, like microdosing came into my awareness just a couple of years ago. I've struggled with PTSD, anxiety, depression, like terrible things, suicidal thoughts for 5 years straight. And I tried microdosing and like the stacking technique, the Paul Stamets stacking. Um, and honestly, it's changed my life. It completely Yeah. So where do I even start? I guess I feel like it would be easy if you asked questions, but I just like wanted to preface by saying that microdosing is an incredible technology of the earth technology that can heal our consciousness and create new neural pathways and allow us to like gently release trauma and programming and create like a healthier way of relating with ourselves and with the world. And yeah, so I'm just stoked to be here. I haven't really shared much about my journey with microdosing, so it's cool to finally give voice to something that yeah, has had such a profound impact on my life.
that's great. Nick, do you have any questions for Namid?
um, I did just now, and I don't know where they went.
Okay.
So
Well, I want to know what what made you decide to try it? What made you think that it was a good idea to give it a try?
Like in the past, in my early 20s and late teens, I had explored with psilocybin, like mushroom tea. And so I kind of knew the effect that it had on me then, and just like connecting me to a deeper, more raw, true part of myself and life. So I think I was kind of just in a place of feeling pretty desperate for some relief because I'd been running loops in my thoughts constantly. And I just kept finding myself in the same place over and over and over again. And it felt like it was all inside of me. There was nothing anyone could do outside of me. It was like me, I was broken. I was the one that needed fixing, and I didn't even know how to fix myself because I was so enmeshed in the patterns. And yeah, so I had a friend who offered me microdose pills. And I think those ones specifically were like the Paul Stamets protocol. And it had lion's mane and niacin, I believe, and psilocybin. And yeah, and that's what started the whole journey. And to be completely honest, like I've never been the same and I've never been better. My house is cleaner. I take better care of myself. Like I have healthier boundaries in my relationships. I'm more productive. And I still have those tendencies of like falling into depressions. But I would say, whereas like my typical was like spike, dip, be down for like 3 weeks and then like slowly come back up. And it was just like the extreme ups and downs. And now it's more just like steady. Like I don't go as deep and I also don't go as high. So it's really acted as like a mood stabilizer. And I feel like why it did that was because when I was microdosing, when you microdose, the intention is not to like trip balls and see pretty colors and like have a full on ego death or like, it's to actually like live your everyday life and experience life with like this subtle nuance. It gives space between stimulus and response. And that's where like the true healing really happened for me, was seeing myself get triggered, seeing myself get anxious, and like being able to just take a moment and witness why that happened and then develop self-compassion. And it's yeah. So I feel like I've talked a lot. This is something I'm so passionate about. And it's like it still feels a little bit taboo, but it's also not taboo. Like it's on the up and up, just like cannabis. And it's a totally different medicine than cannabis. And it needs to be respected. And in terms of like healing from PTSD, depression, anxiety, and like mood things, this can be one of the most profound tools available to humanity, like for real. I have deep reverence for the mushrooms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Mhm.
Nick, do you have things
Yeah.
you want to say, or should I?
Yeah, I just want to say that I also used microdosing as a tool when I was going through like depression and despair and existential crisis sorts of stuff. Um, I think I only spent about 4 or 5 months doing it regularly, and then it was kind of just on and off as I needed it. So it wasn't really a long-term needed thing for me, but really helped uh, find new ways of perceiving myself when I was in depressed states. So, yeah.
Yeah.
It's kind of amazing because I feel like that's the thing about microdosing is like, whereas, big pharma and all these like pharmaceuticals, it's like, oh, if you have like trauma and you have mood problems, like you're going to be on Lamictal and Prozac and lithium for the next 4 years until you have to like wean yourself off. And that's a whole thing. But with the mushrooms and microdosing, it's like you can do, I think I did about like 3 months of microdosing and have experienced like actual cellular healing. And like it's not something that you have to do every day or every week. If you choose to like go into it with the intention of healing and seeing a new perspective, then
Mhm.
that can be available to us. And
Mhm.
it's pretty awesome.
And I don't know exactly what Paul Stamets protocol is, but I mean, the protocol that I used and the one that I've seen other people use, you're only you're only dosing like 3 or 4 days a week.
Yeah.
Maybe not even, maybe I think at some point during mine, I tapered down to like twice a week or like once a week or something like that. So it's something that it's changing something that's making things work out better. So,
And
but
I had my own experience with it before that protocol came out. And I microdosed for 30 days in a row. And my experience was absolutely life transforming also. Um, before I before I had that experience, I had just become homeless actually. And I was living out of my car and I was really just incredibly depressed and stressed and really not having a good time of it. I had gone from being on an adventure to feeling homeless and feeling disconnected and really like not knowing how to people anymore. And it was just really hard. And somebody had given me just two little mushrooms. And so I was just taking off a little tiny piece of stem every day and then noticing that I was not depressed. I was able to walk around town with my head held high, that I was able to practice even feeling the ground and like feeling the ground with each step and paying like a lot of attention to how I was walking. And I was ending up helping my ankle because of it. Um,
Mm.
and it was the first time that I had had mushrooms. And this is going back a lot of years, but it was the first time I'd had mushrooms since 2011. It was my very first experience with them. And I had probably 2 grams or so. And before that, I was an atheist, didn't believe in God, well, agnostic at least, didn't believe in any kind of spirituality, and believed that between humans that we were fundamentally disconnected, and that we had to do something to establish a connection. And after psilocybin, I mean, my experience, I had a friend with me. I was in my apartment. I had a friend with me. And I just looked at him and I said, there's nothing in this mushroom that can create a connection. There's nothing in a mushroom that can make me connected. The only thing it can do is dissolve illusion. The only thing it can
Mm.
do is remove blockages. It can't give me something I don't already have. So the connectedness that I was feeling, the one with everything that I was feeling, the presence of God that I was feeling had to already be inside of me. I just wasn't aware of it. And that changed everything in my understanding. And I've spent the last 10 years integrating that wisdom. I spent the
Mm.
last 10 years really integrating that experience with them. And it's absolutely a tool. And the really cool part is I've been on Lamictal. I've been on, half of those drugs that you mentioned. I've been on so many different things because I was diagnosed with bipolar disorder when I was 25. I don't tell that to many people because it wasn't an accurate diagnosis. I found that out after I got a master's degree in social work and learned what the diagnosis. I was overdosing on caffeine was the reason I was having all the high highs that I was having. Yeah, I was taking Vivarin and like caffeine pills and like, just I was just abusing my body just to try to get through days. And then when I wasn't doing that, I was crashing. So
Mm.
that was my bipolar disorder. But they gave me a lot of drugs to try to get me stabilized, and there were side effects, horrible, horrible, horrible side effects. And the worst side effects I've ever had from mushrooms is a little bit of indigestion. I mean, that is just the worst side effect I've ever had, and peppermint tea pretty much cures it the next day. So, I mean,
Mhm.
it's got no side effects really when you're taking it in doses. When you're taking it in therapeutic doses that we're talking about, there's just no side effects. There's no there's not even a high. There's not even a body high. We're talking about taking a very tiny amount of them. That's just enough to remove the illusion of disconnectedness, just enough to make it uncomfortable to not be in our bodies. Um,
Right.
yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, I don't tell that story too often. There's a 3-hour podcast of me out there talking about all of my experiences, but I don't talk about this one too often. Certainly not on my YouTube channel. So,
Yeah.
what else
Yeah,
is there to talk about?
so much.
Pick one.
um,
Do we want to talk about how ridiculous the laws are? Do we want to talk about what we wish for other people, for the kinds of settings we feel like we need so that people can do the work.
Yes, that's something that I want to share is that I think it's really important. You know, I belong to all these mental health groups because I'm like a huge mental health advocate and like person. Like I've gone through my loops and everything. And so I belong to all these groups and I constantly see people posting about like different meds and what they're making them feel like. And I literally have to stop myself from writing microdose, microdose, microdose because I want to be careful because it's still not we're on the fringe, like we're almost there but we're still on the fringe. It's still like kind of a gray area. I'm not entirely educated on the laws and whatnot, but I do feel like I wish that this medicine would be more like readily accessible for people and for people to understand that like so I think a proper microdose is 0.75 milligrams from what I've like researched.
I think everybody has their own idea of what the right protocol is, which is one of the reasons that we're not quite there yet, is because
Totally.
you tell somebody to microdose, I have a friend that thinks microdosing is 1 gram. And I'm like, that's a small dose. I wouldn't call that a micro in any stretch of the imagination. You're going to feel that. So,
Yeah.
and so we don't have perfect technology or terminology yet but you were saying.
But I was saying, yeah, set and setting. And like one thing that I explored when I first started microdosing, this was last February. So it was like almost a year ago. Was I would do these things called ascension naps. So I would microdose in the morning and then around like noon, I would put on a Joe Dispenza meditation or like those angelic binaural frequencies. And I would just lay there and close my eyes and like ask my body. Like when I took the pill in the morning, I would ask my brain to heal itself. And then when I was laying and taking these little ascension naps, I would ask my brain to heal itself and for my body to rejuvenate and my cells. And I would have these experiences that were like I could feel my body vibrating. I could feel that I was vibration and that everything, like things were shifting out of me. And it was like I got superpowers. And through that experience, I wanted to like drink more water and eat more fruit and drink more green juice and like take deep breaths and stretch and like things that like typically I'd be like rigid in my system, like like I'm uncomfortable and the world's uncomfortable. Like it gave me like space and expansion. So in the first few days of microdosing, I like to share with people that haven't microdosed, like allow yourself space to be in a healing space, like create your own cocoon because things will come up. Like people will say they don't feel them. You're not supposed to feel it, but you will feel like emotions, maybe agitation or anxiety or sadness. And for the medicine to like be truly effective, we have to allow space for tears to flow or like whatever needs to happen, like if you need to go dig a hole outside and like plant something or prune your plants, like it's just like, yeah, creating a healing space, not just like taking a microdose pill and turning on the TV and watching X-Men. Like, no, thank you. Like, that's not what this medicine's for. If you're using it in that way, like, it's just not the best use.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
And do you think that I want to pay, I guess, a little bit of devil's advocate of, do you think that all of those healing rituals that you were participating in had more of an effect than the psilocybin? Or do you think the psilocybin was a vital component for what you were doing?
I think the psilocybin was a vital component because it allowed me space to slow down in my everyday life and move outside of like the deeply grooved lines that I think in and live in. It was like, oh, it's okay for me to like close the blinds at noon and close my eyes and listen to a meditation. and then move on in my day. If I hadn't been microdosing, I wouldn't do that because I live in the rat race I did live in the rat race 9 to 5. You hustle and you grind and you don't take breaks, and naps are for lazy people. Like, so
I guess I'm
that's,
still in the same thought of if you did though, if if you took a placebo pill, if you just,
mhm.
if you took some vitamin C or some vitamin B or whatever, and you went through the same thing, do you think it would have given you the same benefit? Because
um,
that's one of the critiques of microdosing, is that it's a placebo.
yeah. I truly, honestly don't think it would have given me the same benefit. I think, like, on a cellular level, like, there was deep healing that was taking place that, the mushrooms assisted me in, just like anything that we ingest into our bodies is going to have an effect, however big or small. So, it's hard to tell though. I don't know. I truly don't know, but I do see the connection between like neural networks and what neural networks and mycelial networks look like. And just, yeah,
Sure. Yeah. And I was just playing devil's advocate. I agree with you. So
yeah, anytime. I think we need to hear like all sides of the conversation because, you know, but I think a lot of people are going to start catching on, and they already are. And that, like, this is it's a huge like opportunity for conscious evolution
yeah.
on the planet.
Do you think that the mushrooms care how we raise them, how they're grown? Do you think that they need to be like grown with healing and love in our hearts rather than greed? Because I know that some people grow them for just making money. Do you think it matters?
Yeah, I think anything in life that we grow with love and like presence and reverence is gonna like have a more like positive effect. It will be felt. It will translate. But yeah, I think I really, really hope that people that are cultivating this medicine can like actually tune into the consciousness of deep reverence and like honoring of the spirit of this plant and the healing properties, and not just fall into greed mindset, because that sucks, but it's inevitable. Look at the cannabis industry, it's like
Yeah. Yeah. Nick, I'm sure you have something to say about all that.
There's a lot there.
Mhm.
Um,
Or on anything else.
or on anything else. Well, um, yeah, I don't,
Okay.
I don't know what to say right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, what's alive for us right now in this conversation? We've been talking for a little bit. Do we have more that we want to put into this?
I mean, for me personally, I just feel like excited and passionate about having a platform to share this experience, because I think like people think about mushrooms and they think about like tripping balls.
Yeah.
And there's a whole other side, there's a whole like consciousness to them. And I'm just really curious to see where things go with this in the coming years, you know? It's like, are we gonna have dispensaries that sell mushrooms?
Yeah.
Is that where we're headed? And how soon are we headed there? Or is it just gonna be like therapists prescribe microdoses to clients and the client takes the microdose and goes in for a therapy session? Like,
Yeah. And are you going to go to a dispensary and have different varieties that you can buy? I mean, there's so many different varieties of psychedelic mushrooms that that would be an interesting thing, you know. Is it going to be like a cannabis dispensary? It's a super interesting world that we're going into. And what I'm kind of a little bit, I wouldn't say afraid of, but I kind of feel a little bit of a tightness in my chest about is the number of people that sorry, my phone is distracting me. The number of people that use this recreationally, having more access to more potent strains and having it be more
right.
readily available, you know, and hearing conversations about like this, there's like no side effects, except there are, you know, as you increase the dosage, there's more of a risk of all kinds of things happening because we don't have proper set and settings. You know, we don't live in a world where it's really okay to be to have your ego completely dissolved. I mean, there's some there that's a difficult thing, and that's, you know, as you get I saw a chart recently, and you guys could probably correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, 2 grams is you definitely feel it, you're definitely high. You may have some visuals. You know, if you go up into like the 3 and 4 grams, you have an ego death, or at least a, you know, the ego goes offline for a period of time. But if the more you go, the ego just completely dissolves. And for hours that you're having this experience, you are not the thing that you think that you are. Well, at least that's not the thing that's operating. And that's kind of dangerous in our world. It's kind of
Yeah.
dangerous to walk around that way, which is why we have problems with people who are schizophrenic, because very often that's what they're dealing with, is they have a dissolved ego.
Mm.
And I'm kind of a little bit concerned about the way that we're going to handle that. And, you know, the system that we have, the way we would handle that is when we find people that are in that state, we would take them and we would put them in jail, which is absolutely the worst thing to do for everybody. And what I'd like to do is put them on a farm where there's a whole bunch of flowers and, you know, there's wise people walking around, and there's like an elder fire over there with people, you know, holding space for whatever comes up to be cleared and processed. And I would love these spiritual sanctuaries for people who are, you know, I saw a Facebook thing about shedding people who are shedding, you know, like things come up to be cleared and then we shed them. And we need these sanctuaries. And there's so much trauma over that we've just created in the last couple of years
Mm.
that needs to be cleared. And I'm a little concerned about how that's going to go, and who's going to get to make the laws about that, and who's going to, yeah.
That's like such a valid point, and I also feel concerned as well because like even with cannabis and like the heavy concentrated dab oil and stuff like that, you know, it's like we're not meant to be consuming things on the level in which we do by any means right now. So it's like, yeah, we have these very potent medicines that are these like extraterrestrial, like beings here to help us heal, but we are humans existing on planet Earth and we don't have the infrastructure for that healing to take place properly for people. I would say, like, if dispensaries opened up for mushrooms and like college kids living in the dorms in SOU go and buy like, you know, 5 grams of golden teachers and a chocolate, there's going to be some shit that comes up. I mean, if, you know, like someone was raped when they were a kid and then they have those memories come up and then their roommates playing Call of Duty in the living room and the loud shooting sounds, and then like they're hungry and they go and eat Cheetos, and it's like this whole like it's just not Like we need these like integration stations, you know, for like
Love it.
for
Yeah.
people to have this healing. I wish that was there for me and so many people that
Yeah.
I know. And
Name for a coffee shop, integration station.
integration station,
Right?
right?
Like a loungy coffee shop kind of like place. That would be a great place for me to hang out. I
I
keep
love that.
trying to find a place in this capitalistic world for myself because I feel like I have a lot to give to the world, and the system doesn't really want to, you know. I mean, I'm kind of subverting the system, so the system's not going to put me high on the list of, yeah. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Fuck the system.
that's what integration stations. I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a super like that point. I'm glad that you brought that up because it's like I feel like so many people are excited for this turn of events to happen, and at the same time like that is something to think about and to
Yeah.
keep in check. And I hope that
Yeah.
that things can be carried forth with reverence and respect and
Yeah.
not just like
And bad trips are a thing mostly because we don't have the right set and setting.
I recently had a conversation with a friend who had a bad trip and we processed it and it was so beautiful because she was like, "Oh my God, you get me," you know, because it was like the trip that she had, it just, it made sense and we frame it as a bad trip, you know, it's because it's not fun.
Right.
It's not fun when we realize like we've been living a lie or, you know, it's like when you feel the truth, it's scary. It is not chill. It is not fun. Like my first heavy mushroom experience, there was a point where like this music was playing and I felt like all these bugs were eating my body. And it was like, and like, I was like, I don't feel good. Like, I want it to stop. And my partner at the time he was just like be with it. And then I was like, okay. And then I just laid down and I like allowed the earth to devour me. And I came up a mushroom. Go figure. Like mushrooms are like, you know, it's rebirth.
Yeah.
But it's delicate, you know, like our brain chemistry is delicate and it's a delicate balance of um doing just enough and not overdoing it and having people to talk to. Like that's what I love about you, Bonnie, is like, you know, like when I said fuck the system, it's like fuck the system. We need to create new systems because this is all happening. This whole paradigm is happening. We're all witnessing it and living it. And how can we like create infrastructure for people that are going on these psychedelic journeys and cracking themselves open?
Yeah.
How do we help integrate?
Yeah. I often feel like a Cheshire cat. I'm just kind of hanging out and asking the right questions at the right time. You know,
Yeah.
where are you trying to go? I don't know. Doesn't matter which way you go then.
You totally are that. I see that.
Yeah. And I just really want a garden to hang out in, honestly. Yeah, and just be that. That's the
You
way.
are so worthy of a garden to hang out in. And like people need you to be hanging out in a garden where they can come and be like,
Yeah.
this.
It brings me to an interesting point that's related. You know, an acupuncturist once told me that I needed to keep 60% of my chi, he said, for myself, you know, 60% of my energy for myself. In the capitalistic world that we live in, that's ludicrous. You know, that's ridiculous. That's selfish. That's utterly just completely, why would you do that, right? You know, the capitalist world wants you to keep 10% at most, maybe 5 for yourself, you know, and that feels like about right. Um, but I'm not functional. I'm not kind. I'm not helpful. I'm not functional. I'm not interesting. I'm not creative. All of the things that I do that people in my life value, I'm not any of those things unless I keep 60% for myself. And so a there are many, many people like me who are, basically wise women, wise men, wise people, um, who really could be holding the space for the set and settings that we need to do all this healing work if we had if we had set and settings for ourselves that made it easy for us to keep 60% of our chi for ourselves. So in a situation where, I had this idea for these sunflower farm churches, right? Where we're growing sunflowers and we're processing them into sunflower oil that we sell to restaurants so that they can use good healthy oils and stuff like that instead of the toxic stuff they use. And there's elder fires and natural building, and there's a communal kitchen, and we're making the best possible food the earth can grow. And we're holding, we're doing everything that we can to build healthy bodies and healthy minds. And we've created all kinds of healing sanctuaries and stuff. In a setting like that, it wouldn't take very much for me to keep my basic needs met. And then I could be in service that way, and we just don't live in that world. And there's not many people who are living in that world. And I would like that to be our default world, where we live in community unless we want to live in the capitalistic system. I think it's perfectly fine to like want to start a corporation and make a ton of money and have lots of planes and go take people to space and things like that. I think there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think that should be our default. I don't think that should be the default game. And I think that's what we're doing right now is we're kind of normalizing an alternative game where more people have their needs met and where it's more normalized to have our needs met, because why wouldn't we?
Right. Why wouldn't we?
Why wouldn't we make a world that's fair for everyone? Like, why wouldn't we do that? Why wouldn't we eat the best food this earth can grow, that our bodies can build healthy bodies out of? Why wouldn't we want clean water? Why would we poison our food and our water? Why would we do that? It just doesn't make any sense.
Right. Why do government programs like WIC provide mothers and children with like whole milk and cheese and the most toxic products? Why aren't we like having like plots of community gardens in every community that's run by the government that teaches people, how to take care of chickens and grow food and make your own cheese? Like, there's just a way more sustainable way of doing things, and we've just fallen so far from it. And I feel like so many people are just falling further and further and further into the matrix, the
Bureaucracy is our
capitalistic.
default.
What?
Bureaucracy is our default. That's why, because through bureaucracy, you can't run programs like that. So that's run by people believing in each other. I mean, that's just it, is when we're disconnected from each other. Until I was in my late 30s when I had psilocybin for the first time, and until my late 30s, I believed I was fundamentally disconnected from others, and therefore I had to protect myself, and I
Right.
had to guard myself, and I had to do all these things. So people who haven't had that experience, who don't know that they're connected, are not operating that way, and that's most people.
That's why I feel like everyone needs to microdose. Like, it's like if everybody like on the planet had a little dose of mushrooms or mushroom tea, then we would all see there's a better way. Like, maybe.
I think a lot of people would be touched that way. I also think that there's a lot of people who are so sure that they're disconnected, who are so sure that they are, them against the world, that they are so not interested in being in their bodies, that transcending their bodies and being like a mind thing is like their thing. I think they wouldn't be touched by it. I think that's one of the reasons I was playing devil's advocate, was because I think if you weren't allowing the medicine to do that kind of work with you, it wouldn't have. That it's I know people who can take a 10 strip of LSD and then go to work as a cashier. Like, I don't know how you do that, except you're denying the effect of the thing on you.
It's the embodiment thing, right?
Yeah.
Embodiment. What's the embodiment thing?
How can you embody a 10 strip of LSD and be a cashier at the same time? um I'm just like, I've seen people use these things to disconnect also.
Mm.
I've known people who will um take the same thing I will, and they'll be totally like a floating headspace in the clouds, and I'll be doing like fractal yoga or something.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you talk to us more about the willingness to be embodied?
um yeah, as far as like in relation to what, to microdosing or just to the medicines in general, or
I'm just giving the
embody?
opportunity to talk, Nick.
Okay. um well, it means um being willing to feel everything that's happening in your body, being willing to feel all the feelings, and also all the vibrations, um all the energies that are moving through, and yeah, being willing to allow that energy to move through you. It's like um I guess versus building like a conceptual structure around yourself for you to live in.
Mm.
Conceptual structure is what you would do otherwise. um, but for me, a lot of the benefit of working with things, tools like the mushrooms, is learning how to allow these energies to move through, to flow through cleanly, and to embody them and to express them, or how to be with them and experience them fully. Um, don't create blockages in your system, and it's really along the lines with the whole microdosing thing, because yeah, I mean, the less blockages you create, um, I guess that's just like healthier for for people.
Yeah,
uh,
thanks.
yeah.
Is there anything here that still wants to be said?
I just want to reiterate that I was like suicidal for 5 years on a daily basis. Like, I would look at like a wall and be like, I should smash my head into that wall and die. That's a great idea. Like it was just a constant loop that I was running that I couldn't get away from. And that a microdosing on psilocybin has changed my entire life in the most like profound ways. And if you knew me then and you know me now, then like you know.
I did, and I do, and I see it. It is miraculous. Yeah, it is.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
Was there anything that you were doing to synchronize with the microdosing that was like um helping also? Like, I mean, were you doing larger doses at certain times also, or other things along with it, along
Um,
with the microdosing thing?
yeah, I wasn't doing larger doses. I was just microdosing. I would do like 3 days on, 4 days off, 3 days on, 4 days off, 1 day on, 3 weeks off, like kind of just like kept going like that for a while, for a couple months. But I would say like the main thing that I did was like laying down and allowing my body to reset,
Mm,
like actually like stopping everything I was doing and putting on a meditation. Joe Dispenza's work like really helped me. Like pairing Joe Dispenza meditation and talks with like laying down and closing my eyes. Also, I had started somatic therapy. So I did work with a therapist who would like, help me work through different mannerisms. Like, why are you holding your throat right now? What's there? And I'm like, oh, so I think just being very consciously aware of the fact that I was living a reality and in mental loops that I didn't want to be in, and like actively really choosing to do the work. I ended up, like I've had like off and on relationships with alcohol and cannabis, and like I pretty much got sober completely off of everything. Um, and then I like had a little relapse at 79 days, and that was fine. But I think also mushrooms helped me see that alcohol was extremely toxic for me and my relationships and my body. So it's just been like a total lifestyle switch up.
mm,
It's like really, yeah, like I don't know. It's like was it the mushrooms, or was it the work that I was doing? Was I doing the work because of the mushrooms, or was it all just happening simultaneously? It's really hard to tell, but regardless, it's like I truly feel like if people are committed to healing and expansion, then this is a beautiful tool that doesn't just mask your emotions and like dampen your mood or like stabilize your mood. It actually helps you kill or like kill old neural pathways and create new ones. Part when I first started microdosing, I had this dream that I was driving on this road and a bridge collapsed, and a bridge, like this giant bridge collapsed on the road, and I was like, shit, like I had somewhere to go, like I was going somewhere, and everything I knew was on the other side of that road. And I like basically had no choice but to get out of my car, and like I was in this foreign land, and I just started helping other people. It was like some kind of like Asian place. I don't know, somewhere in Asia, but like my role was to help people. And I feel like that was symbolic because it was like I was driving on a road that I could no longer travel on. And like things had to collapse for me to like get out and walk on my own 2 feet and figure out where the fuck I was going next, because like no one's going to do that for you. Like we have to do that work. No drug, no plant medicine, no therapist, no guru is going to like miraculously fix you. It's a like an alchemization and like a synergized relationship between all of the things that we do that can actually create, change and results. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. I'm just like, I'm just so happy to talk about this with you guys. Like,
yeah.
Thank you for
thank
coming to
you.
the feel tank. The difference between a think tank and a feel tank is if I was having a think tank about microdosing, I would invite Paul Stamets and all the people that are creating all of this knowledge base that we're working on. But I don't want to do a think tank. I want to do a feel tank, which is people who have experienced the thing, talking about their experiences with it, and unpacking how we feel. And you had said something about when you hold your throat. And I was like, oh, I'm like, I always do this. And immediately I knew exactly what the trauma was, that it was one of those things that wasn't traumatic in the moment. Like my body remembers it, but like it happened and I was like, okay, that happened. That was nuts. And then I just like went on with my life. But like I almost died. And it was like, it's here. It's like right here. And I've had healing work done where somebody was doing energetic healing on me, and she asked permission to work on me here. And I said, yeah, whatever you need to do. And she went to touch me here. And then the next thing I knew, she was like up against the wall on the other side of the room. I didn't touch her, but my energy did that to her. It was like,
Yeah.
you're not going to touch me here. This is my tender place. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
It's interesting that you say that too, because that's also like a point for me that I'm always touching.
Yeah.
And my therapist who I was working with said those are like the grief spots. And like lately I've been like doing a lot of energy work and body work on people. And I just want to like grab people from behind right here and like peel it open and like get rid of it. So I think that, like I'm sure you had a big trauma that happened there and there's stuff to release, but I think that collectively too, like there's a lot of grief.
Oh yeah. I mean, that was the moment that I stopped being a child and I started being an adult. Was that
Oh,
moment that happened. My childhood was over in that moment. The innocence of childhood was over. Yeah. Lots of grief.
that's sad.
Yeah. Is what it is. If you want to hear the whole story, you can listen to the video. The end of the video that I did previous to this one, I tell the whole story.
Okay. So it's on your YouTube channel.
It is on
It's
my
on this. Okay. What's the title of the video? Do you know?
That one, it was one of the ones I did with Bella. So it wasn't the last one. It was the one before that. It was the last one I did with Bella. I think it was on addictions.
Okay. Yeah, I'm curious. Yeah. Innocence,
Yeah.
I pray that we can all like return to some level of innocence and purity, that'd be great.
It would be great if we didn't lose it. It would be great if we could just walk through the world as children without these adult egos that we cultivate so that we can participate in capitalism. I mean, it, if we created a world where we were trusting each other and living in community and having, we wouldn't need to have this we wouldn't need to hold on to our illusion of separateness. We create a society that requires us to hold an illusion of separateness. And I think the medicines teach us that you don't have to live that way. And I think one of the things that's shifting in the world is us demanding some consideration for how we want to live. Consideration is a real need. And I'd like some consideration. I'd like my water to not be poisoned. I'd like my food to not be poisoned. I'd like it to not be difficult to get my needs met.
Yeah.
I don't know why I have to rally so hard for that, but that's the world I live in.
Well, I believe that things are changing on both sides, so.
Indeed, for sure.
The best we can do is just come together with people. Like it's like, I don't know. If I had enough money, I would be opening integration stations all over. So
anybody watching this, send Namid some money and
yeah. I mean, I'm doing that to build that in my own life, but like really it's like I'm always thinking like I'm building for myself, but I'm thinking about everyone else. I think about you. Like I think about like, building for like the people, because like I could cry about it. Like I'm seeing people struggle right now and like I'm struggling too, also thriving, but it's like I just am ready for like the new systems to be activated and for like new yeah new systems activated and just like yeah, codes of consciousness, Christ consciousness, love consciousness, compassion, healing, return to innocence and purity,
Yeah, it's coming.
a world of grace and
Mm,
yeah,
it feels yummy.
beauty.
I love your vision. I want you to
Thanks.
have all of the funding. I have seen me backstage at your concerts, and seen all the amazing things that you do in the world. And it's really cool to watch it actually unfold because you've come a long way since I met you a bunch of years ago.
Well, thanks.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's happening. I'm working hard
it's good stuff.
for all of us, like for consciousness, you know? Sometimes I got to check my ego.
Will do. Yeah, sure. I'm forced to check mine often, especially when I argue for my limitations, because
Mhm.
that's all part of that programming also. The
Mm.
illusion of separateness creates or allows for this egoic function, and then we argue for our limitations to stay in it because we're not, it's illusion. It's
Mm.
all, yeah. Maybe I'm due for some microdosing. Not something I've done in a long time, but it really helped me when I did it last time. I've been pretty depressed actually, and I'm in a lot of pain.
Aw.
So, but yeah. Do we have any advice for anybody who hears this and is like, yeah, now I want to microdose? Is there anything that people should pay attention to?
I
Do we
believe
want
it.
Hmm?
What?
to talk about dosage at all?
Yeah.
Because that's the thing. If someone gets the idea to do it and then they get a bag and they're like, now what do I do with it?
Yeah. I
That's why
I've always told people to just pinch off a piece of the stem, just however much it feels like to you, but that's not in the slightest bit scientific. But that's because I didn't have any. That's because I didn't have any scientific research. You guys, I think, are more on top of that than I am.
there's a
Yeah.
combination that I've found really helpful. I'll just share, and then Nick, I'd love to hear what you have to say. I've microdosed with 0.75 milligrams in a capsule with
Milligrams,
niacin milligrams.
0.75 milligrams.
Do you mean 75 milligrams?
Yeah, well, is that 75? It's
Um,
like a 13th of a gram.
0.075 grams is 75 milligrams.
So what would be a 13th of a gram
Probably
ish?
probably 75 milligrams, which would be 0.075 on a gram scale.
Okay, so it's 0.075.
Yeah.
Very small.
Yeah. Okay. I was just
Very
making sure because 0.75 is almost a gram, and that's not a microdose
right.
No,
for most
not
people. I'm sure there's some people that would consider that a microdose, and that's why I wanted to talk about this because these medicines, everybody's different. Everybody's system is different. Everybody has different sensitivity levels and stuff like that. So yeah, continue. Sorry.
no, thank you for correcting me too, because it's really important that they don't do 0.75, that it's 0.075, which is like basically a gram split into 13 capsules evenly. And then that's like the measurement that comes through. I am an artist. Math is not my forte, but
It's all good.
I
We're
really
clarity.
I really enjoyed I didn't like the niacin with the microdose with the psilocybin. It like makes you feel like hot and fleshy. It was not a good fit for me. So I prefer the microdose paired with other herbs like passion flower and skullcap and ashwagandha and lion's mane. Um, and just taking a pill in the morning, with some water and then have like a nice smoothie and kind of just coast through the day. That's worked for me.
Mhm.
That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah, for me, I would sometimes mix it with other herbs, depending on what I was going through. Um, often I considered the mushrooms to work on the nervous system. And it seems like combining other herbs that work on the nervous system go well with them. So all the herbs that you mentioned and all the practices you mentioned, it's interesting to me that it's all nervous system soothing and or feeding things. And that's like part of the reason that I choose microdosing with mushrooms over other things sometimes, is because of its affinity for my perception of it having an affinity for the nervous system. And so I think that's cool. For me, a microdose, I sometimes like to feel it a little bit, and sometimes I'll take like a 0.1 or 0.2. And I usually just if I have a bag, I'll just tear off a chunk of the cap the size of a fingernail, a small fingernail, and eat that. And that's
What is
usually
a small fingernail to you? Like
like
a baby
like a
fingernail?
no, like an adult, like my pinky finger, I
Because
guess.
that if I ate my pinky nail, my tiny little pinky nail, I'd be feeling it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Um yeah, and I guess that's where everyone is different. Like I like, so for me, about 1/10 of a gram is my microdose. And
Mhm.
like I've heard other people say 1/4 gram is a microdose. And to me, if I took 1/4 gram, I wouldn't want to go out in public necessarily. So like, yeah, everyone is a little different, and this is a good
Mhm.
conversation to have because of it. So
Yeah, and that's like, it's like different doses are going to affect different people. You never know. Like one day it could affect you really strong, and then the next day you could feel absolutely nothing. So
yeah.
it all just depends on how much people feel and how sensitive you are and how potent the medicine is. But
And how willing
yeah.
you are to let it work on you.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, allowing yourself to just like sit and be in stillness and in meditation and like with your feelings and with your breath and fully embodied, like that's a good space to be. I don't love going into public when I microdose, but I do find that when I do go into public and I've been on like a microdose where I feel it a little bit, that everything's more synchronistic and magical. Like I kind of just like float through life in a better way. So I don't know what's up with that, but that's that.
I think it's not resisting the things that that make us connected.
Mm,
I think it's not I think it's not consistently reinforcing the illusion that we're separate. I think that the medicine I think that mushrooms help us feel connected to ourselves and to everyone else. I think that's what their
yeah,
magic is. My,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah.
Do we have anything else we want to say here before we end this?
I feel complete. I feel super grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, my
Thank
pleasure.
you both.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel complete. I mean, I feel good about what we talked about. So
Yeah. Well, I'm going to stop recording. Just hang on one second.